What if your family's most treasured heirloom vanished after your father's funeral, only to resurface at a crime scene, implicating the last person you'd ever suspect? In Father's Favorite Knife, the real shock isn't who's accused, but who's truly behind it. And why? The day after their father's funeral, the Bennett siblings gathered in the old family home, sorting through memories and mementos. The air was thick with grief and the scent of their father's pipe tobacco. The house was filled with reminders of his life, hunting trophies, faded photographs, and, most prized of all, his favorite knife, a hand-forged blade with a carved bone handle, passed down for generations. The knife was more than just a tool, it was a symbol of the Bennett legacy. Their father, George, had always kept it in a glass case in his study, telling stories of how it had saved his grandfather's life in the war. Each sibling had secretly hoped to inherit it, but George had left no instructions in his will. As they packed up the study, Ben, the eldest, noticed the case was empty. "Where's the knife?" he asked. No one knew. They searched the house, but it was gone. The siblings argued, maybe Dad had given it to someone, maybe it was misplaced in the chaos. But a shadow of suspicion crept in. The knife was missing, and with it, a piece of their father's legacy. A week later, the family was rocked by a call from the police. There had been a break-in at a local antique shop. The owner, Mr. Hargrove, was found unconscious, and the place had been ransacked. But what caught everyone's attention was the weapon left at the scene, a distinctive knife with a carved bone handle, stained with blood. The police traced the knife back to the Bennetts. The siblings were called in for questioning. Ben, Sarah, and Michael all denied any knowledge of the crime. But the real shock came when the police revealed their main suspect, Emily, the youngest Bennett, a quiet librarian with no history of trouble. Emily was stunned. She hadn't seen the knife since the funeral. She'd spent the night of the break-in at home, reading. But the evidence was damning. Her fingerprints were on the handle, and a witness claimed to have seen her near the shop that night. The family was divided. Ben believed Emily was innocent, but Sarah wondered if their shy sister had a secret life. Michael, always skeptical, accused Emily of trying to get attention. The family's grief turned to suspicion, and old wounds reopened. Emily was released on bail, but the town buzzed with gossip. The Bennetts hired a lawyer, and Ben took it upon himself to clear his sister's name. He retraced Emily's steps, checking security cameras and talking to neighbors. He found footage of Emily at a late-night cafe, miles from the crime scene, but the timestamp was off by an hour. Sarah dug into the antique shop's records, discovering that Mr. Hargrove had recently acquired a collection of rare coins, items that were now missing. Michael, meanwhile, searched the family home for clues, convinced the answer lay within their father's secrets. As the siblings investigated, they began to suspect that someone had set Emily up. But who would want to frame her, and why use their father's knife? The deeper they dug, the more secrets surfaced. Ben found old letters in their father's desk, hinting at a falling out with Mr. Hargrove over a disputed debt. Sarah discovered that Michael had been struggling financially, and had visited the antique shop the week before the break-in. Emily, desperate to prove her innocence, remembered a strange encounter at the funeral. A distant cousin, Jack, who had always envied the Bennetts' inheritance. Jack had lingered near the study, asking about the knife. The siblings confronted Jack, but he denied everything. Still, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that the answer was closer to home. He began to suspect that one of them knew more than they were saying. A breakthrough came when Sarah found a hidden compartment in the knife's display case. Inside was a note from their father: "The knife is more than an heirloom. It's a key." The note included a cryptic map of the property, marked with an X near the old barn. The siblings followed the map and unearthed a small box buried beneath the floorboards. Inside were rare coins, matching those stolen from the antique shop, and a letter from George, confessing to having taken the coins from Mr. Hargrove years ago to settle a debt. The truth began to emerge. Their father had hidden the coins, and someone had discovered the secret. The break-in was a cover for retrieving the coins, and the knife was planted to frame Emily. The siblings reviewed the evidence. The only person with access to the study, knowledge of the knife, and a motive to frame Emily was Michael. He had been struggling with debt, and the sale of the coins would have solved his problems. Ben confronted Michael, who broke down and confessed. He had found the map and the coins after their father's death. Desperate, he'd planned to steal the coins and sell them, but when Mr. Hargrove caught him in the act, Michael panicked. He hit Hargrove, grabbed the coins, and planted the knife to throw suspicion on Emily, knowing she was the least likely suspect. The family was devastated. Michael was arrested, and the coins were returned. Emily was cleared, but the damage was done. The Bennetts struggled to come to terms with Michael's betrayal. The town's gossip was relentless, and the family's reputation was in tatters. Ben tried to hold everyone together, but Sarah withdrew, and Emily struggled with anxiety. Their mother, Margaret, was heartbroken. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs, for letting the family fall apart after George's death. The siblings stopped speaking, each retreating into their own pain. But Ben refused to give up. He reached out to Sarah and Emily, urging them to forgive Michael and each other. "We're still a family," he said. "We can't let this destroy us." Slowly, the siblings began to heal. Emily started therapy, Sarah returned to work, and Ben organized family dinners. They visited Michael in jail, offering forgiveness and support. Michael, remorseful, promised to make amends. The family sold the old house, using the proceeds to pay off Michael's debts and donate to charity. They kept the knife, now a symbol of both their pain and their resilience. Margaret found comfort in her grandchildren, teaching them the stories of the Bennett legacy, both the good and the bad. The family learned to laugh again, to trust, and to hope. Years passed, and the Bennetts rebuilt their lives. Emily became a librarian, Sarah started a business, and Ben ran a community center. Michael, released on parole, worked to repay his debt to the family and the town. The knife was displayed in Ben's office, a reminder of the lessons they'd learned. The siblings shared their story at local events, encouraging others to face their secrets and seek forgiveness. The family's legacy was no longer defined by a single heirloom, but by their ability to overcome betrayal and find hope in the aftermath. On the anniversary of their father's death, the family gathered at Ben's house. They shared memories, told stories, and passed the knife around the table. Emily, once the least suspected, was now the heart of the family. Ben gave a toast to Dad, to forgiveness, and to the truth, no matter how hard it is to face. As the sun set, the Bennetts felt a sense of peace. The knife's story was no longer one of suspicion and pain, but of healing and unity. The truth, at last, was preserved. If you believe in the power of truth and forgiveness, share this story with someone who needs hope. What would you do if your family's most treasured heirloom became the key to a shocking secret? Let us know in the comments below.